All right, let's dive into some English learning tips for all of you out there.
Yeah, we're looking at a guide today called English for Beginners, Essential Techniques and Tips.
It's specifically for those of you at that A1 level.
So really like the starting point.
At the very beginning, yeah.
And I know it can be a bit overwhelming, like where to even start with a new language.
Right, that's why we're doing this deep dive, breaking down.
The most useful stuff.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things that this guide hits on that's so interesting is like starting with the basics, BUT, strategically.
Yeah, not just like the alphabet or something.
Right, not just colors, numbers, like the real basic stuff.
Yeah, one thing that the guide emphasizes is starting with phrases that you'll actually use right away.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, when they start learning English, they'll learn things like, my name is.
Right, you don't really use that all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, you might introduce yourself, but
Right, that's true.
think about like when you're traveling or when you're in a situation where you need to ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
So learning phrases like, excuse me, could you tell me where?
Oh, that's a good one.
I would like to. Or can I have?
Oh, yeah, that's way more useful.
Stuff that will actually get you navigating real situations.
See, I wish I'd thought of that when I was trying to learn Italian. I got so stuck on learning all these isolated words
Right.
instead of phrases that would actually help me, like order food or ask for directions.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is already a game changer for me.
And then go back to the basics. The guide also stresses, don't underestimate those classic tools like flashcards
Oh, yeah.
and language learning apps.
I love flashcards. I used to use them all the time when I was learning Spanish.
It's like a tried and true method,
It is. And it doesn't take a lot of time either.
Right.
Even if you just do like 5 or 10 minutes every day.
Totally.
It's like drilling those key vocabulary words into your brain.
Repetition is key. Yeah.
Consistency is key.
I used to use them for Spanish verbs, and oh my gosh, I would dream about them.
Really?
I would, but it worked.
It works, yeah,
So flashcards, highly recommend.
for sure. And then another big thing the guide emphasizes is immersion,
Oh, yes, immersion.
even if you can't just hop on a plane and...
Travel to England.
Exactly.
Live the language.
Right, but what they mean by immersion is just exposing yourself to the language as much as possible in your daily life.
Okay.
And they have some really cool specific examples.
Ooh, I love specific examples.
Yeah, so they talk about diving into children's books and audiobooks.
Oh, that's a good one.
Something like The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Yes. Simple, short, I love it.
It's a classic.
It is a classic. Exactly.
Simple sentence structure, everyday vocabulary.
Yeah, perfect for beginners.
Perfect. And then they also recommend checking out slow English podcasts.
Oh, tell me more about these slow English podcasts.
So there are a bunch of podcasts out there designed specifically for English language learners.
Where they speak.
Slowly
And clearly.
Got it.
And they use simpler vocabulary, so it's easier to follow along.
That's awesome.
Some good examples are ESL Pod and BBC Learning English.
Okay, writing those down.
Those are some popular ones.
Cool.
Yeah, so you're basically getting this like daily dose of English.
Yeah, and it's not like boring textbook stuff either.
No.
It can be fun, like listening to stories or...
Yeah, listening to the news.
Oh, right, yeah, current events.
And, even just having it on in the background while you're doing something else.
Like passive listening.
Yeah, can make a difference.
I like that.
And then they also mention, listening to English music.
Oh, yeah, music's a great...
Like following along with the lyrics.
Yeah, especially if you can, print out the lyrics or have them up on your phone or whatever.
Right, so you can see the words as you're hearing them.
Exactly.
And even watching cartoons or TV shows with subtitles.
I do that all the time.
It's a fun way to learn.
It is fun. It's like sneaky learning.
Yeah, you're not even realizing you're learning.
Right, exactly.
But it's seeping in.
I love it.
Yeah, so all of that is part of this immersion idea.
Okay, so we've got flashcards, apps, we've got immersion. This is good stuff. But I'm curious, what does the guide say about actually speaking the language? Because that's where a lot of people get really, really nervous.
That's the big hurdle for a lot of beginners.
It is.
And the guide actually stresses that speaking is the most crucial skill to develop,
Okay.
even from day one.
Oh, wow. Even from day one, I always thought I had to, build up my vocabulary and grammar skills before I could even attempt to speak.
Yeah, it's tempting to kind of wait until you feel ready.
Yeah.
But the guy argues that the sooner you start speaking, the better.
Okay, so how do they suggest we overcome that fear of, making mistakes or sounding silly?
Right. Well, they have some fun and actually kind of low-pressure ideas to get you talking.
Yeah.
Without that intense pressure of like a real conversation.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So the first one is, and this might sound a bit strange, is talking to yourself.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Oh, perfect.
Not necessarily in English, but
Yeah.
I talk to myself.
But the idea is to start narrating your day in English.
Okay.
So even if it's just simple things like, I am making coffee,
Yeah.
or I am brushing my teeth.
Okay, so like, I am walking down the street. I am going to the store to buy groceries.
Exactly. It might feel silly at first.
I can just imagine myself walking around like, I am conquering the world with my amazing English skills.
But hey, whatever works.
Whatever works, right?
The point is, it gets you used to forming sentences and hearing yourself speak the language.
Right, it's like practice.
Yeah. And then another tip is to record yourself using a voice memo app.
Oh, that's a good one.
So you can kind of listen back
Yeah, I like that.
and pinpoint any areas where you might be struggling with pronunciation or grammar.
And you get used to hearing your own voice speaking English, which can be a little weird at first.
It can be a little strange, yeah.
But I think it's helpful.
It's helpful. And then if you're feeling a little bit more brave, they suggest finding a language exchange partner online.
Oh, that's a great idea. It's like having a pen pal, but for language learning.
Exactly. And there are tons of apps and websites designed specifically for this.
Like HelloTalk.
Like HelloTalk, yeah.
I've heard of that one.
So you can connect with native English speakers.
And they can connect with us, and we can all help each other.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
That's awesome.
So you get to practice your speaking in a more relaxed environment.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it takes the pressure off. Like, it's not a formal classroom setting.
It's
just like chatting with a friend.
Yeah, and you can learn about each other's cultures at the same time.
I love that.
So it's a fun way to kind of immerse yourself and get over that fear of speaking.
Okay, so we've talked about speaking, which I know is a big one for a lot of learners.
Yeah.
But what about grammar?
Grammar, the elephant in the room.
Yes, because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, get really intimidated by English grammar.
It's complex.
It is. There's so many rules.
It can be overwhelming.
It can be, and I feel like sometimes I get so bogged down in trying to memorize all the rules that I forget to actually, speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of freeze up and they think they need to have perfect grammar before they can even start.
Exactly.
But the good news is...
Good news. I love good news.
Yeah, the good news is this guide says you don't need to cram every single grammar rule right away.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, that's a relief.
Big sigh of relief.
So instead of like memorizing the entire textbook.
Which is tempting, by the way.
It is tempting, yeah. You want to know everything.
You want to be perfect.
But they suggest focusing on that core sentence structure first.
Okay, core sentence structure, tell me more.
Which is subject, verb, object.
Subject, verb, object.
Yeah, so like a really simple example would be, I eat pizza.
Okay, I eat pizza.
Yeah.
I can handle that.
Right, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, not too scary.
So you have your subject, I, the verb eat, and the object, pizza.
Okay, so if I can just master that basic structure.
Yeah, that gives you a framework for building more complex sentences later on.
I see.
And it helps you to start thinking in English.
Right. So it's like building a foundation.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So wait, does this mean I don't have to worry about all the different verb tenses right away?
Well, not entirely.
Okay.
You'll definitely want to get a handle on the basic tenses.
Basic tenses.
Like present, past, and future.
Okay. Present, past, future, I can do that.
So for example, I live in Spain. That's present tense.
Okay.
I went to school. That's past tense.
Got it.
And I will visit London. That's future tense.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you can master those three basic tenses,
I feel like I can express a lot already.
you can express a surprising amount just with those three.
That's great to know.
And if you get more comfortable, you can start adding in other tenses.
Okay, so it's like a gradual progression.
Exactly. Start simple and build from there.
I love it.
And there are tons of resources online, like free grammar exercises and quizzes
Oh, perfect.
that can help you practice those basic tenses.
Awesome.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mistakes are our friends, right?
Exactly. It's all part of the learning process.
I'm feeling a lot more confident about this whole grammar thing now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
It's not as scary as I thought it was.
No, it's all about breaking it down into manageable chunks
I like that.
and focusing on the essentials first.
Okay, so we've tackled speaking and grammar,
Yes.
two biggies, but I'm curious, what about reading and writing? Because those feel like completely different beasts to me.
You're right, they are different skills, but
Yeah.
the guide emphasizes that the same little and often approach works wonders here too.
Okay, so we're not talking about diving into Shakespeare just yet.
Not quite. The source recommends starting with simple, enjoyable texts. Think children's books again, maybe move on from The Very Hungry Caterpillar to something a bit longer. Or try those short news articles from sources like BBC Learning English's News for Beginners.
Oh, I love that idea. It's like getting a dose of current events and practicing English at the same time. I bet even reading subtitles while watching a TV show could help, right?
Absolutely. It all adds up. And when it comes to writing, the guide encourages you to just start putting those words on paper, even if it's just a few sentences a day. Keep a journal, write a quick email to a friend, or even describe what you see around you.
I used to try writing little poems in Spanish about everyday things like my coffee cup or my dog. It helped me play with the language and not take it too seriously.
That's a great example. It's about finding what works for you and making it a habit. And speaking of tools that make things easier, let's talk about the tech side of things.
Okay, this is where I get excited. The guide mentions a bunch of language learning apps, but they don't just list them, they break down what each one is good for.
Right. For example, Duolingo is fantastic for gamified lessons and building a solid foundation. Then you've got the BBC Learning English app, which is perfect for news and grammar practice.
And don't forget about Memrise. They're all about vocab building with those clever mnemonic techniques. And of course, HelloTalk for connecting with native speakers. We already touched on that one.
The beauty of these apps is that you can literally learn anywhere, anytime. Even just 10 minutes on the train or while you're waiting for your coffee can make a difference.
Okay, I'm sold. Time to download some apps. But before I get lost in the App Store, there's one more technique the guide emphasizes that I want to unpack. Thinking in English.
This one might seem a little abstract, but it's about training your brain to work directly in English rather than constantly translating back and forth.
I've heard about this. It's supposed to be like a superpower once you get the hang of it, but how do you even start?
The guide gives some really practical tips. Start by simply naming objects around you in English. Table, chair, window, that kind of thing. Then try forming simple sentences in your head as you go about your day. I am walking to the store. I need to buy milk.
So it's like narrating your life in English, even if no one else can hear you.
Exactly. And what's fun is, if you don't know the word for something, try describing it using words you do know.
Like instead of remote control, I could say the clicker for the TV.
Right. It might sound a bit clunky at first, but it gets your brain problem-solving in English.
This is blowing my mind a little. I never realized how much I rely on translation in my head.
It's a common habit, but the more you can think directly in English, the more natural it will start to feel.
Okay, this is all great stuff, but I have to admit, sometimes the whole language learning thing feels daunting. Like, what if I just never get it?
I hear you. This guide emphasizes that learning a language is a journey, not a race. And you know what? Mistakes are your best friend on this journey.
Wait, really? I always feel like I want to disappear when I mess up a word or grammar rule.
But those mistakes are how you learn. Don't be afraid to experiment, to sound silly, to try and fail. It's all part of the process.
I guess that makes sense. It's like you can't learn to ride a bike without falling a few times, right?
Exactly. And just like learning to ride a bike, having someone there to cheer you on and offer a helping hand makes a huge difference.
So we're back to the idea of finding a learning buddy or a tutor.
This guide emphasizes the power of community and support. Whether it's an online class, a language exchange app, or even just a friend who's also learning English, having someone to practice with can make all the difference.
That makes total sense. Sometimes I just need someone to remind me that I'm not alone in this crazy language learning adventure. So it's like having a built-in cheerleader.
Yeah, someone to keep you accountable and motivated.
Yeah, because I think that's a big thing with language learning. It's like staying motivated.
Definitely.
Especially when you hit those plateaus or you're feeling stuck.
Right, because it's not always going to be easy.
No, it's not. There are going to be challenges.
There are going to be times when you just want to give up.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where having that support system can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And I think that leads us perfectly into this last point that the guide emphasizes, which is finding your why.
Yes, your purpose.
Your purpose, your motivation, like what is it that's driving you to learn English in the first place?
Because that's what's going to keep you going when things get tough.
Exactly. So is it the dream of traveling the world and being able to communicate with people from different cultures?
Yeah. Is it for work?
Oh, right. For work, for career advancement.
For school.
For school, yeah. Or maybe it's something more personal.
Like connecting with family members.
Oh, yeah. Or like being able to understand your favorite English language movies and TV shows without subtitles?
Yeah, there's so many different reasons.
There are, and I think it's so important to really identify what your personal why is.
Definitely, because it's going to look different for everyone.
It is.
But once you find it, write it down.
Oh, yes. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day.
Put it on your mirror,
Yeah, your mirror, your fridge.
your phone background.
Exactly. Like, make it a constant reminder.
Because when you're feeling discouraged,
Wish you will.
you can look at that why and remember why you started this journey in the first place.
It's like your North Star.
It is. It's your guiding light.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've covered so much ground, from those strategic basics
To immersion.
to speaking, grammar, reading, writing, tech tools.
And finding your why.
It's been a whirlwind,
It has.
but hopefully a very informative one.
I hope so.
I know I've learned a lot,
Me too.
and I'm feeling really inspired to, continue my own language learning journey.
That's great to hear.
So I guess the question now is, what's that one small action you can take today to get started?
Yeah, what's that first step?
Is it downloading a language learning app?
Is it picking up a children's book?
Maybe it's writing down a few basic phrases.
Or even just listening to an English song?
It doesn't have to be anything big or complicated
Just something to get the ball rolling.
to get you started on that path.
Exactly.
And remember, every journey starts with a single step.
So take that step today.
And celebrate it.
Yes, celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
I love that.
Because every step you take is bringing you closer to your goal,
To fluency.
to confidence.
To connecting with the world in a whole new way.
So keep learning, keep practicing.
And never give up on your dream.
We're all rooting for you.
We are. I love that idea of celebrating every little win.
Yeah, it's important to acknowledge your progress.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in what you haven't achieved yet.
Right. To focus on the end goal.
Yeah, like fluency, but it's those small steps along the way that really matter.
Exactly. And each one is a victory.
So don't be afraid to pat yourself on the back.
And remember, there's no right or wrong way to learn a language.
That's so true, because everyone learns differently.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. So it's all about finding what works for you.
Experimenting, trying different things.
And embracing the journey.
Exactly. It's all about the process.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on English for beginners, I think we've covered a lot of really valuable insights.
We've definitely touched on some key strategies.
From those strategic basics to immersion to speaking practice, grammar tips, tech tools.
And of course, finding your why.
It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
And I hope all of you listening out there feel inspired and empowered to start or continue your own English learning adventure.
Yeah, remember, anyone can learn a new language.
It's true. It's just a matter of taking that first step.
And then another, and another.
And before you know it,
You'll be speaking English with confidence.
So keep learning, keep practicing.
And most importantly, have fun along the way.
Absolutely, because learning should be enjoyable.
It should.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Bye for now.